Hello and welcome back to the Lowdown, everybody, for a Man United special. And who better to join me than Culture Cams and Liez Bouzidi? How are we doing, guys? Liez, are you okay?
I'm okay, man. I'm okay. At the point where we're gonna say, right? At this point, the Europa League hasn't been played, so if I'm too happy right now, nothing's happened yet. I'm okay for now.
Cams, you too?
I'm in the exact same position. You know what I mean? We're going to Bilbao, so it's going to be a hell of a journey, and hopefully it's worthwhile anyway. You know what I mean? So let's see, man.
It's going to be one to remember either way. But yes, guys, today we are not going to focus that much on the final. We're going to look ahead to the summer because if Man United win or lose, there's definitely need some changes in terms of squad personnel. Man United obviously 16th. They were 8th last year with 60 points. That feels like a distant memory now, doesn't it? The days of 8th, what you do for it now.
60 points. I'll rip your hand off.
Crazy, isn't it?
8th place.
60 points. Wow.
Yeah, I think it's 2 points from the last 27 available, 24 points in 26 games under Ruben Amorim. It's been really, really difficult to say the least. But let's talk about a player and a signing that does look like it is close to happening. It's had the here we go from Fabrizio Romano, and that is Matheus Cunha, Cams. What do you make about Cunha's potential arrival?
I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely buzzing about it. You know, I think a big thing for me is players that have played in the Premier League or players that have done well in the Premier League. You know, a lot of people say the word Prem proven, but I still think he's got points to prove as well. So I think him coming to Man United is something that we need. If you look at him athletically, technically, you know, you look at his goals, his assists, his playmaking, I think he adds something that we really need and something that we're really lacking in the team at the moment. So Cunha, I think if you're thinking about a team of the year, he's somebody that will be potentially knocking on the door for that. Playing for a team like Wolves as well, which makes it even more impressive. I saw he's outperformed his XG by more than any other player in the league this season as well. And I just think you've got to have a little bit of minerals about you when you play for Man United. A little bit of an ego, a little bit of an attitude, or you think you're that guy. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like we haven't had something like that since Bruno Fernandes when he came to the club. So I think bringing him in is exactly what we need for that 10 position, considering Amorim is so big on left 10, right 10, whatever. You look at the systems that Cunha has played in. He's played in back five systems before. He's played in them 10 roles. He's played in the 9 if we need him potentially. Played off the wing. So honestly, like, I'm not trying to make it out like he's gonna win us the league.
Sounds like we're signing Kaka the way.
You know what I mean? He looked like Kaka one time when he played against us. He ran past me. I was like, is that Kaka? Like, what? So honestly, I think it's a really good signing. I hope it's the first of many.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was going to ask you that, Liez. In your dream sort of front three next year, Cunha is one of those starting positions, but who is the other inside forward? We'll get on to centre forward, but who is the other guy? Is it Bruno playing there, or do you prefer seeing him deeper in midfield? What would be your kind of ideal lineup?
I think it really depends on how the summer goes, but I think with Bruno, it is nice that we've seen this year he can play deeper. He's actually been quite impressive in terms of that deeper role, whether it's playing next to Casemiro or Ugarte. I think we've seen a new level to his game, a new dimension in terms of his calmness on the ball. However, I think I would go in for another attacking midfielder. I think Man United's biggest issue at the moment, there are a lot of them, we'll talk about all of them, but at the moment the biggest issue has to be goals, creativity, creating chances, putting them away. So I'm looking at 2-3 signings minimum in terms of those front three positions.
Okay. I mean, let's get into the big one, centre forward. This is the most talked about one. I mean, Liam Delap feels like the most likely. Before we get into your suggestions, Liez, what do you make about Liam Delap at United?
I really like Liam Delap as a player. I think this season he's really come leaps and bounds, and I think you look at the prototype of a center forward that thrives in the Premier League. He kind of has that in terms of bullish. He's strong. He can hold players off, direct, good nose for goal. And I like the fact, too, that he has a bit of an edge to him, to be honest with you. We've seen it at times. He doesn't mind kind of getting rough with players, getting in their faces. And that's not a bad thing whatsoever. It reminds me, in fact, of Diego Costa at Chelsea. Wayne Rooney at times had that little bit of an edge at Man United. And I think when you look at what we have right now, I think we're definitely kind of missing that bit of personality. My only worry with Liam Delap is it all too soon for him? I have no doubts about his quality, his temperament, but leading the line for Ipswich is very, very different to leading the line for Man United. And asking him to come in on day one at his current age, his current level, to do that for United, we're asking for 20 goals a season. Can he do that right off the jump? I'm a little worried there, but in terms of quality, I have no doubts.
Okay, and who would be your dream centre-forward signing?
My dream centre-forward, and I say this specifically as a dream because I don't think it's going to happen. But when I look at the center forward market right now, I think there are a lot of question marks around a few guys. I mean, even when you look at Arsenal, for example, like they're after Gyokeres, they're after Sesko. I think even those guys have some potential question marks in terms of how they translate to the league and into Arsenal's system. The player that I look at in the market at the moment that has the least question marks and is probably the most surefire in terms of he's going to score you goals from day dot is Victor Osimhen. And I'm honestly a little surprised that more teams aren't after him, because this is a guy that everywhere he goes, you are guaranteed goals. You're guaranteed big moments. He's really, really good in the air. I think when you look at the market of center forwards, no one is better in the air than Victor Osimhen. I love the way he runs channels. I love the way he occupies entire back fours. He's a nuisance. Left foot, right foot. Is he the most technically sound, like maybe a Benjamin Sesko? Maybe not, but this guy's a presence, and I have no doubt that would translate perfectly into the league. Now, of course, there are issues over his wages, and I think that's ultimately why a lot of teams are maybe trying to stay back. But I remember the days of you just sign a center forward that comes in on the spot, like a Diego Costa at Chelsea, like a Robin Van Persie at Man United, and delivers from day one. I think that would have to be Victor Osimhen.
Yeah, a lot of people point to his injury issues as well, but a lot of those injury issues are quite niche. Like, I remember he fractured his eye socket on Skriniar's shoulder.
Yeah, broke his shoulder.
Broke his shoulder as well. There was a bit even early in his career
This
where he
season,
got
by the way,
malaria.
though,
It's kind of like freakish injuries. This season at Galatasaray, he's been brilliant.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of a shame that he did have to eventually take that year in the Turkish league just because of where he was at in his career. But I think he'd be an excellent addition if they could get it done. It does feel like Saudi Arabia is potentially the most likely given those wage demands. But Cams, if maybe you are thinking Osimhen as well, but who would you be your dream centre forward?
I think what he said about Osimhen is absolutely right. I think the only reason why we wouldn't go for him is simply because of wages. I don't think it's a situation where Man United haven't looked at him. You'd be crazy not to look at him in this current market. So I definitely think we've looked at him and probably tried to assess it. And financially, maybe it's just not going to make sense at this present moment. And rumours are saying that he's not really willing to reduce the wage. So if that's the case, it's kind of hard to do, especially maybe if it was Ed Woodward Man United, he would have brought him in, you know what I'm saying? But Ineos have come in with a little bit of a different mentality. So Osimhen, I'd take. Delap, I like him as well. I'm a big fan of Delap. This season, I had him as one of my players to watch, and I think he's been brilliant, Leah's touched on his bullish side. It's not only that, he's the best carrying forward in the Premier League, and there's going to be times when Man United needs someone that can just take you out of pressure, get you up the pitch, and there's literally nobody in the league better at doing that than Liam Delap. So, but again, his age and stuff, it's just a bit of a concern. We've seen people come and drown at this club. It's very difficult. So I feel like when you're looking at it, there's the blends of like a Viktor Gyokeres, right? A Viktor Gyokeres, and there's a lot of doubts over him because personally for me, I do think his numbers are inflated. I saw he's got 136 goals and assists in 2 years. I mean, that's Messi stuff. Do you know what I mean? And you are not Messi level. Do you know? So for me, I look at it and I think, okay, that is inflated. But when you look at what he does have an eye for goal. He knows where the goal is. He's got a ruthless finish. Takes pens as if like Alan Shearer takes pens. You know what I mean? He's like, he proper knows what he's doing in front of goal. And that's important for us, you know what I mean? So I think Viktor Gyokeres is somebody that we should definitely be looking at as well. And I think if Man United win the Europa League, that will be a player that United are going to look at over Liam Delap. I think right now it's Delap and Gyokeres, but I think Gyokeres will get the nod if we win the Europa League. So, as I said, I think he's a little bit of a blend between Delap, like he's in age and like scoring goals, and Osimhen as well, like got the goal scoring of like maybe an Osimhen, and he's in the middle in terms of that kind of age gap where I think Man United need a little bit of experience, and he's coming with a point to prove as well. I do want to throw a name in there, is and I know Joe Tomlinson, I remember he said it a long time ago and he got cooked for it, but I do think Man United can look at a striker like Mateta, man.
100%.
I really do think, and I'm looking at...
Great 18 months.
Yes, man, and you look at Amorim, I've seen how he likes his teams to play in their best moments. And they like to get the ball to the striker quite early. And how many strikers in the Premier League are better at bringing somebody else into play or chesting the ball down? And you saw the perfect...
against City.
Thank you. Against City, Sean Dyche's unbelievable commentary, by the way, where he just said, stick the ball to the big man, play off him. And within 20 seconds, it happened. Do you know what I mean? So I think Mateta is somebody that you should look at.
You've been liking the idea of Dyche at United as well.
Hey, bring me Sean Dyche. Stabilise my club. You know what I mean? Stabilise my football club. But no, I think Mateta is somebody that I would genuinely consider, and I know he's not a big name and people are probably going to think, well, it doesn't have to be. You need someone that's just going to come with a profile and understand, again, somebody that's played in the Premier League, someone that's scored goals in the Prem, someone that probably has a bit of fear in centre-backs. So those are the names that I'll be looking at for sure.
One thing you see a lot of these clubs these days as well too, and I find it a little frustrating, but I guess this is just the way football is going. I almost feel like instead of signing up a striker that's kind of right there and that's ready to contribute immediately, it's almost like teams would rather go and find a guy that in 4 years could get
that level.
Could get to that level.
Yeah.
But there already is a guy that is at that level.
Yeah.
And I feel like 10 years ago that would never have happened. Chelsea, for example, would never be going after all these 21, 22-year-olds. They'd go and find the best on the market because they can contribute now. And I just look at the way the game is going. Maybe it's financial fair play as well, too, which has kind of veered it in that direction. But it's a little frustrating to watch as a fan.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. I know he's already been mentioned on this show already, but Diego Costa signed at his prime, has 4 great years at Chelsea, and everyone's happy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you kind of see the benefit of, I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe has been talking about that with that Gary Neville interview as well. Like, we want more proven quality in the Premier League as well, and kind of players that are ready to kind of hit the ground running as well.
100%.
And that's why I think you're going to quite like my striker suggestion.
Yeah.
We'll see. But Patrick Schick from Bayer Leverkusen,
Wow,
goal
okay.
scorer. Just an unbelievable goal scorer. And I don't think necessarily maybe the tightest in terms of like someone who's going to dominate an entire defence like a Gyokeres or an Osimhen. But I think it's 27 goals in 45 games this year.
Wow.
Since coming back from injury at the back end of last year, absolutely remarkable. I think he averages a league goal this year every 80 minutes.
Jeez,
Kylian
wow.
Mbappe is the top goal scorer in Europe, and he's at one every 97. So he's at a phenomenal goal scoring rate, and he's not always a guaranteed starter at Bayer Leverkusen. Bayer Leverkusen losing Xabi Alonso, potentially losing Jonathan Tah, Florian Wirtz. Frimpong's going to Liverpool. It's the time to shot from Leverkusen. Having said that, having lost their manager and potentially 3 stars, they might not be keen to let him go. But this is a guy with 9 years of experience playing in Europe's top 5 leagues. He's 29. And some of the finishing around the box is super, super tidy. And I think he'd be a really, really solid addition. And he had a difficult spell at Roma early in his career, but rebuilt it at Leipzig, then at Leverkusen. I think he's been there for 6 years
And
now.
let me tell you with Schick, this is in the scenario now where maybe I don't mind a Delap so much, because then if you sign a Delap and a Schick, Schick is not going to break the bank, for example.
Absolutely.
Then all of a sudden, Delap isn't expected week in, week out to be banging in goals for Man United because you have someone else to lean on. I think that's where we've massively gone wrong the last few seasons. Personally, you signed those two for a combined fee of what, 50, 55 million?
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind that.
It wouldn't be a lot. I mean, Schick's contract expires in 2027. So for Leverkusen, if he's not going to extend, this is the kind of the time to sell him for the maximum fee. And I think he's valued at around 30 million euros, so about 25 million pounds. And, you know, if you offered Leverkusen 30 million pounds right now, I think they'd be kind of tempted on a 29-year-old.
You know, it's funny because I know, try and get where I'm coming from here, right? I do think United need to, not need, but I do think it helps if Man United sign a player that is actually used to not getting that much service, that's actually not used to getting, like, has to make something out of nothing sometimes, because that is Manchester United. It's just gonna be real. Manchester United are a team that we don't create the most, and our striker does have to do things. That's why when you look at someone like Delap, I think he's gone 5 games this season without a shot. Højlund's gone 10, and I think there's somebody else that's Jamie Vardy's gone like 12 or something like that. These are strikers that some games they haven't got anything, but sometimes you're gonna have games where they're just gonna have to make something out of nothing. They're just gonna have to turn a half chance into a big chance, and I think Delap does that sometimes. I think Mateta does that. Palace don't always have the ball. They don't always dominate. So you bring
count,
you bring in a striker who's used to getting. I mean, I can imagine Schick, right? By Leverkusen, they under Alonso, they create. They got Frimpong, they got Grimaldo. Everyone's running around. It's amazing. But you come to Man United, and all of a sudden, mate, you might have 2 shots a game. You might have. We might need something out of that. So I do think. I'm not saying now let's just go shop in the market for relegation strikers or anything, but I do think, like, that's what I think of Ollie Watkins as well. Somebody like that who often turns rubbish balls into good balls.
Yeah.
And I think that's a criteria United need to look at for sure.
Okay. Schick and Delap potentially coming in. That'd be a great start to the summer with Cunha. I think that'd be brilliant.
Yeah.
Right. The next positions we can talk about are right wing back and central midfield. I know you guys have had some doubts about right wing back in terms of the options out there. I mean, it is just difficult to find right backs and right wing backs, especially for this system. I think someone like Jeremy Frimpong would have been perfect, would have been absolutely perfect. But obviously, coming from Leverkusen, not going to go to Man United as a starter from Leverkusen at least, when Liverpool are on the table as well. But right backs, right wing backs, where were you kind of at with this, Lias?
I don't know, right? Like,
were you still backing Dalot?
Oh, definitely not. Absolutely not. One thing I'll say about Amorim's system, if you want to look at it, because when you look at, for example, Inzaghi, and you look at Glasner at Crystal Palace, and you look at Alonso at Leverkusen, their systems work so well because of the wide players, and I'm of the firm belief that the wingbacks are arguably the most important aspect of any three at the back system because they help you go from a 3 to a 5 back to a 3. They're important, right? But they really play with specialist wingbacks, whether it's Dumfries, whether it's Munoz, whether it's Frimpong. When I look at Amorim's Sporting over the last 12 months, yes, he played with different iterations of wingbacks. At times it was Nuno Mendes, but the most recent one, he was really playing inverted wingers in those positions, Giovanni Quenda on the right. And I think that is ultimately what he's probably going to want to do at Man United. There was a key quote that he said at the beginning of his time where he said, when we start, we're going to start with defenders out there because it's easier to teach defenders how to attack than it is attackers how to defend. But I do think going into now will be his first full season, but his second season at the club, I think he's going to try and transition more into the likes of Amad Diallo becoming his full-time right wing back. And I do see similarities.
Amad will be happy with that?
I think Amad has played probably his best football this season. I was actually of the impression that maybe it was better as a 10, but Cam actually pointed out to me that most of his best games this year have been kind of playing as a right wing back. And you look at in the system, he has full license to kind of go wherever he wants because he's not restricted to being an out-and-out defender that occasionally goes forward.
The problem with Amad out there, and I do think he's played his best football there. Like he receives the ball facing forward, so he can run at defenders in a way of like he would if he was a winger. But the problem is it's not even necessarily him going the other way. It's how we set up. We're often in a back five, so then that's the issue. So that's where maybe Amad, as you said, Dougie, like he could get frustrated in a position like that because you're now going to be like in the bank of 5 and you're not going to be attacking. Then all of a sudden you're receiving the ball in your half 90% of the time, and that's not what an Amad Diallo. That's where Amorim and the team. It has to be this is a back 3, and these guys are basically wingers. They're basically midfielders, because then you'll see the best of Amad easily. But if it continues the way it is now, Amad is going to be like in a right back position, and that's why he probably feels comfortable with a Diallo there because Diallo is still going to be playing basically as a right back. So you need that wing in right wing back is important. You want Amad there. You do not want him as a right back. So that's the dilemma we have. As you mentioned, Frimpong I think would have been a good option if you look at teams that are playing that. Dumfries, Munoz. So you're looking at players that are already playing it, and there's not that many though. So the ones that are playing it, I think that's the market that we really need to be in. So
like Nuri, for example, I think he'd be a real specialist for that.
Yeah. So but it's the fact that we bought Dougie now, so we're not going to get someone on the left hand side, but that right hand side is going to be interesting if it's going to be Amad. And the thing about Diallo though is that he's usually ever present, and managers love that. So I think it might be a case where we don't sign a right wing back. I think he's going to go with Amad and just always know if so, Diallo will always be fit. Do you know what I mean?
I hear that. Do you think there's a chance that he plays Dorgu out there and maybe goes for someone on the left? Because if you remember his first game against Leicester, he actually started Dorgu as a right wing back, and it just wasn't working because also Diallo on the left isn't great.
I know he played there.
I think he might actually play him as a right wing back because I remember the early links were to guys like Kerkez and Nuri and even Nuno Mendes at the time, right? So I don't know. Maybe that's a potential.
But he came out and said, you guys are right. You know, Dorgu's better on the left.
Which is crazier.
So I don't know. Like, you don't really know with what's going to happen.
When we came to the club.
Yeah, you know. And the thing is, United, it might sound random, but United have a boy in the academy called Mantato, and he should come to pre-season with us. He's been playing right wing back, and he plays on the wing as well. So maybe in a way it could be like a baby kind of Quenda situation. I think they might even be the same age. Funny enough,
I was gonna say
they might even be the same age. Yeah, it's just let me say a less experienced Quenda kind of situation. So we're gonna see maybe in pre-season if Mantato might get that nod, you know, and if he does, that's a ready-made academy wing back there for us. So. Let's see what happens with that one, man. It'd be worth keeping an eye on.
I get your point, Amad, because especially if you're going to play Bruno as one of those inside 10s, and you say you've got Ugarte and Mainu, and then Dallo's the right wing back or whatever, and Dorgu's the left wing back. The creativity, the lack of it in that 4 across the middle, it's frighteningly low, isn't it?
Yeah.
And like Bruno feels like the only player that can naturally create in this side that freely when Amad's not on the pitch. So maybe just get Amad locked down in that right wing back position. I did suggest someone. I dug around. It did take a little while. One point on Denzel Dumfries. Inter are supposedly signing Luis Enrique from Marseille, who can play as a right wing back and as a left winger, which is quite an interesting skill set. And I wonder whether that is. I think it's actually to phase out Darmian, who's like 36 now.
Yeah.
but maybe Denzel Dumfries is available. I mean, it's wishful thinking, to be
I
honest.
mean, if Inter want to
his
sell
aerial
him, to be
ability
fair,
is
this is
crazy,
the
innit?
best time in the world. Dumfries' stocks have never been higher. And I
After that
remember
semi-final.
I remember Inter fans like a few months ago were saying Dumfries, we gotta move on from him. His stocks are in the moon right now, bro.
Yeah, what was it? 4 direct involvement in 4
Yeah.
of their goals in the semi-final.
Even
Dumfries.
just the other day, in that title decider, he got that bullet header,
goal.
and then they obviously
He's a
conceded.
presence,
Could have been
man,
the winner.
honestly,
Could have been
He's
the
one
winner.
of those guys, you really got to spoon feed him information, though, I feel like, in terms of make that run over and over again. You will get the ball there, square it in, goal.
People do always complain about his like sort of game awareness.
Yeah,
let's
he's
say.
not,
Like, he's
not
just
the best,
amazing
but he's
physical specimen.
Yo,
Yeah,
he's like
he's
Mike
brilliant.
Mike Connery incarnated. man.
Yeah.
Seriously.
But I did have a look at a guy that's playing for Rayo Vallecano, who's called Andrei Rațiu. Now, he's been playing for Romania for a number of years. Rayo Vallecano currently 8th, and he plays as a right back and as a right midfielder in a 4-4-2. And this guy, I was watching some highlights of him yesterday. Oh, my days. He's like 6'2", physical specimen. The way he drives with the ball,
Denzel Dumfries.
so exciting. And he's been linked at the moment to Brighton and to Spurs.
Ooh,
and I
Brighton.
wonder...
Intercept.
Yeah.
Intercept that. Intercept
Get it
that.
done.
Intercept. We have to intercept that.
Here in Brighton,
Get it
here's
done.
Brighton, intercept it. He's
And
a
at
jewel.
the moment, he's completing 2.3 dribbles per 90 from right back mainly. And Ahmad's the only player at the moment completing over 2 in this United squad. And look, I get it. Rayo Vallecano, different style of team, different level of pressure, obviously, to Man United. But Man United, I know you guys have slightly complained about some of the signings in recent windows, but you do need to take some lower cost risks
100%.
and like hope that this guy for £20 million is going to come off, because you've
It's
seen
like Dougie, innit?
yeah, you've seen Brighton do it so effectively. You've seen Brentford and Bournemouth, etc.,
Yeah.
do it so effectively, and hope that the next, find your next Huijsen, as it were.
Yeah.
And obviously not to sell them to Real Madrid in a year, but you see that there's a real gem in here, because 2 goals and 3 assists this year from right back. He's created the 3rd most chances in the Rayo Vallecano squad. And in terms of carries into the box, he's in the top 5% of fullbacks. And this is a guy that I think would fit this system really, really effectively. He's currently valued at 12 million euros. So
Go on, then.
you might as well. You might as well. So Andrei Rațiu, remember the name. I think he might move this summer. It might not be to Man United, but let's see.
Let
Let's
me just get
see.
you in the DOF, wouldn't it? The DOF.
Jason Wilcox, move aside. Right, central midfield now. I think this is a big one. I mean, Cams, what have you made before we get into your suggestion?
Yeah.
Manuel Ugarte coming towards the end of his first season.
Dum, 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 dum.
Not a fan.
Not a fan.
Big
Not a
disappointment. Or were you expecting this? What are your thoughts?
You know what? To be fair, I was expecting it. To be honest, like I've never really been a huge fan of Ugarte. I think he's somebody that, okay, you can come and do a job, but those type of players are ones that you bring off the bench to try and lock off a game in the last 20 minutes, not starting for Manchester United. And Enrique literally gave us the biggest red flag ever and said, this guy cannot play in my system. Basically, I don't want him in my team. After 1 year, I can't play my football with Ugarte. And Man United said, oh, really? £50 million. Do you know what I mean? So it's actually quite unbelievable that we did that. And you look at PSG's midfield now, for example. I don't want to be harsh, but we signed their worst midfielder.
They signed their 5th worst.
Distance,
And listen, he tries. He works hard. So I'm never going to knock him for that. But I just think quality-wise, what Man United need, can you turn out on the ball? Are you a metronome? Can you keep the ball? Can you help? Sometimes he has created a few in the Europa League, got 2 assists. But I just think he's one of them players, as I said, last 20 minutes, you bring him on, he can help you shore up the game. But starting week in, week out, he hasn't necessarily even been like great cover, for example, like if we do put a Bruno in midfield, a Bruno and Ugarte still doesn't sound secure enough. I would need someone that's even more athletic, even more alongside him. You know what I mean? And him and Casemiro have a little bit of an understanding, a little bit in the Europa League, that is. In the Premier League, is still not good enough. And I think Ugarte is going to be one of them players that, he just came and went, once upon a time. You're just going to remember in like 5 years, oh, you remember when we had Ugarte?
Yeah, the problem is you should never be signing those kinds of players for £50 million.
This
Look,
is the problem.
Cam's been a lot more generous than I am. If I speak my real thoughts on Ugarte, I know Man United fans, as we typically do, we want to give them a longer leash. We want to give them more time. Like, he hasn't been that bad, but genuinely, I think all his flaws are on full display nearly every single time I watch him. And can he be a decent stopgap at times? Sure. But ultimately, if you're a liability on the ball in the Premier League in midfield, I'm sorry, you don't have a very long shelf life.
And it's quite interesting because Amorim was his manager previously. And it's not the same as Ten Hag and Donny van de Beek, where even though he was his manager, he didn't fancy him at all. But Amorim takes him off a lot. He doesn't really complete games.
He's also a walking yellow card.
Yeah, he doesn't really complete games, Ugarte. And so it doesn't actually feel like Amorim has this kind of special love for him in any way. I actually think Amorim will quickly try and replace him, to be honest. And it's quite interesting as that was his ex-player. So kind of damning.
It feels like for years we talked about Man United needing like a destroyer. That was the only thing that was missing, and you guys went and got that destroyer. But I feel like the modern game, you can't.
I think
especially
even
in
his
this system,
destroying
you
is
can't just be a
overrated,
destroyer.
though. To be honest with you, people are acting like he's like Declan Rice or N'Golo Kante. I feel like he hacks a lot, and at times he'll win it. But there's a reason why he gets a yellow card every single game. Like he's not really like a dominant ball winner, in my opinion.
He's a bit too like he hasn't got the like. Kante was like unique, like he's like he
covers so
freak
much
of
ground.
nature.
Yeah.
But Declan Rice's and these type of players,
the
they're
Paulinhos,
usually
for example,
very athletic, and they usually can cover large spaces. Ugarte is not really a player that covers large spaces. When the ball is in small tight spaces,
he kind of like bites at the ball.
He's in there. You know what I mean? But in the large spaces, he still gets bypassed.
I remember when he signed I'd love to shout him out, but I can't remember how to pronounce his handle. The United guy, it's called like
H2O.
Yes. He did this really good video, and his videos I think are brilliant. And it was about how many tackles he attempts. Looks amazing. He attempts like 8, but his tackle success rate has always been really low.
Because he's always
so he's
diving
like
in.
charging
he's
around.
Like a chihuahua, man.
He's
a little chihuahua, honestly. Yeah.
He's like,
just nipping at heels.
So I'm getting the impression Manuel Ugarte is not starting next year in your dream 11.
My books. Oh, it's a nightmare 11. It's not a dream 11.
Cam, who would be your dream central midfield signing?
His dream is hilarious. So that's a nightmare.
Dreams and nightmares. Dream is Adam Wharton.
Wow.
Oh my God. Adam Wharton.
Dream, huh?
This is a real dream.
Adam Wharton. Oh my God. I think I'm in love with this player. I think I'm in love with this player.
I think the rest of the Premier League is, though. That's the issue.
The world is
Adam Wharton, he is so good. Look, I've been a fan from Blackburn. Let me just tell you guys that now. But this guy in the Premier League, and he's playing in a system that Man United play. Well, not the same system, but the same formation. Let's say that Glasner plays and Amorim play with the back five and stuff. He can play in the pivots, right? He is so good on the ball. He passes forward all the time. He can break lines. He's comfortable with it. His defensive ability is very underrated as well. He gets in and amongst things. His intelligence for someone so young is unreal. I actually think this guy can play for any team in the world. I'm being serious. I think he can go Real Madrid and start. I think he's that good. I think he is that good, and I can't wait to see what his next move is. It's going to be a Liverpool City. It's going to be one of the big teams because that is where he belongs. And I look at him and I think to myself, like, how we grew up on Michael Carrick's and Roy Keane's, and he just feels like that will be like the next lineage of that. You know what I mean? Somebody that's just comfortable on the ball, assures you, can calm you down as well. And I think it's not going to be long until he's an England starter as well. You know what I mean? You think about, imagine if it was like Wharton with like Rice and Bellingham or something.
He kind of gives them England a more Eurocentric feel in terms of like the way that the Germanys
up play.
The way the Germanys and the Spains play. Like Adam Wharton feels like he could give that element to England.
And I know the comments already are going to be like, oh, this is what you guys do. You overhype the English players. Listen, I'm ready to put my hat on Adam Wharton. I don't really even... Adam Wharton is the one. Listen, you said dream. Yeah. I'm dreaming. I don't want to be realistic. Don't bring me down. You know what I mean? We're staying in dreamland. And it's Adam Wharton.
I totally agree. He would be the dream by far. But yeah, that's the entire summer budget and more. I think that's...
Talking about even that, does he want to come to Manchester
United? Yeah, he'll come.
I think Wharton's one of those situations similar to Declan Rice where you could kind of feel like his ascension was coming and eventually he was going to leave West Ham, and it was all about being best poised at the time to be in the same window as him. Like, for example, Arsenal, 3 years before they signed Declan Rice, you probably wouldn't have imagined they would be the club for Declan Rice. You would have probably said Chelsea, Manchester City, but they positioned themselves to be a competitive level enough that when he became available, they were a top dog. So for Man United, if in a dream world this is ever to happen, they got to be poised that in the next 2 years, when he becomes available, Man United are kind of a desirable destination to join.
I mean, when we're talking about Wharton and England, we're also kind of talking about Mainu. Where are you at with Mainu's development? Obviously, you're a terrible team this year. Have you been a little bit sad that his development hasn't been as seamless?
I mean, a little sad. Yeah, it hasn't been a great year for Kobbie Mainoo. It hasn't been a great year for anybody, but for him in particular, I think it has been difficult. But I also see a lot of talk around Kobbie Mainoo almost just writing him off and discarding him and saying, I feel like with young players, we often treat them like toys, and the minute a new toy comes around, we throw out the old one. the kid's 19 years old. He is still growing into his body, which I think this year, if I am going to point out anything, I do look at him. I think he maybe is a little too stocky this season. I liked him more a lot last season when it seemed like he was weaving in and out between players. This season, not so much, but he's still young. There's still a lot of room to grow. How many players are kind of the finished article at 19? Maybe we see a guy like Yamal and we become desensitized. Would I want to see him leave Man United? Absolutely not. I think this is still a talent that 12 months ago was starting in a Euro final for England. We were talking about him as damn near indispensable for that squad. So I think we got to be a little more patient. But for him as well, too, I think it's been difficult with the system because does he fit in this pivot in midfield? Maybe not so much. Is he a number 10 in the system? Maybe not so much, but there's still time to grow into that.
The injuries that he's had as well this season, you got to remember he didn't have a pre-season and then he got injured again.
Yeah.
So even if you're talking about like, maybe putting on some, I don't know if it's muscle or if it's just weight in general, he's going to have so much time in the gym. Just in the gym, not actually out on the field getting rhythm. And then at the same time, you get a new manager in who has his way of playing, who wants to be a bit more defensively assured in the midfield. So Kobbie Mainoo's struggling that. I'm not going to lie, I do have a bit of concerns for him in this team with Amorim. I really need to see, I'm praying because, again, I think he's a top talent. Very, very, very top talent. So when I see him go to pre-season, I really need to see what Amorim's plans are for him, because at this present moment, we're doing 11s, we're doing our dream teams, and Kobbie Mainoo's not in it. And 12 months ago, you would have been laughing your head off if somebody said that. Yeah. Exactly. But I do think that is also a product of this system as well. But we're also seeing that he's in a bit of a contract dispute as well. Hopefully that gets sorted, has a pre-season, has a long break, rests up and comes back next season, because it's actually not uncommon for young players to have their breakthrough season and their what they call it a sophomore season. Yeah, they have a bump in the road. You know what I mean? So let's see. I'm never losing faith in Kobbie Mainoo.
I think as well too, right? Kobbie Mainoo, he has spent so much time out that it is difficult to learn a new role and learn a new system when you're in and out of the team so much as well too. I just don't think it's been a great year circumstance-wise for him to reach his full potential. And I have no doubt that he will.
Okay, who are you bringing in at midfield, Lias?
I look at that midfield, right, and I think the big word for Man United that they need to target is multifunctional, multifaceted, in terms of guys who can just do a little bit of everything. And I've targeted Manu Koné, but I think there's a few guys of that mold that Man United could look at. I mean, the big name is Ederson, but guys who can increase the athletic level of this team, because I think Amorim, one of the first things he actually said when he came to the club, and it's something I've been saying for years, is the physical level of this side is diabolical. Like, there's not enough ball carriers, there's not enough athletes in the team, there's not enough guys who just have legs in midfield. You look at Casemiro, for example, Ugarte, there isn't enough. Bruno Fernandes. I look at Manu Koné, and I think, first of all, he has gone so under the radar at Roma. He was at Mönchengladbach for so many years, linked to so many big clubs all the time, but never quite made that move. But this year for Roma, especially since Ranieri's come in, who, by the way, has done a ridiculous job at the club, I think Manu Koné has really emerged as like, oh, this is the guy that they were all talking about all these seasons. Now, I don't know if he's going to make a move 1 year out from signing for Roma, but that's the kind of mold of midfielder that I think Man United need to target. Can carry the ball forward, adept at passing through the lines, defensively quite solid as well.
Useful in the final third as well.
Can just do a little bit of everything.
My only concern about that is just, again, I don't know how many times there should be a counter on how many times we've said the word system, right? Yeah. But it's just about that, like, would it be him alongside Bruno? Is it another midfielder? Yeah. I don't know. I think we might start leaving him a little bit on an island, and maybe we start looking at it and saying, well, he's not doing the exact same thing that he did at Roma. We're not putting him in the same position. That's the kind of difficulty and worry you have when you're playing a system that's completely different to pretty much every other. Well, some teams are playing this formation. So when you have what we are, when you're signing players that are coming from 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, you always have that kind of question mark. You know what I mean?
Let's see. I mean, speaking of managers that have done an amazing turnaround, Claudio Ranieri at Roma, but Carlos Culbran has done something crazy at Valencia.
I think I need to go to that stadium, man.
It looks insane. They were 19th on Christmas Eve.
Yes, and they're nearly getting
12th.
Yeah.
They're 12th, and it's been amazing. And one of the key men in it is a midfielder called Javi Guerra, who's just turned 22. He's 6'2". He does not look like he's just turned 22. He looks really physically developed. This is the end of his second full season there, and he is getting widely talked about in Spanish football circles for a while now. in terms of his carrying the ball through midfield, which is sometimes what I think Man United lack. Like, it's quite predictable. It's quite static often, the way you progress the ball through midfield. It's basically give the ball to Bruno
And hope.
Hope he can do something. Whereas I think if you've got someone that can beat a man more comfortably, drive with the ball, his defensive numbers are fairly solid. And he's had some big games against top midfields in La Liga, which I think is quite crucial as well. Like when they played Real Sociedad, coming up against Zubamendi, who's about to sign for Arsenal by all accounts. You know, Bryce Mendes was in there as well, another top technician in there. Absolutely dominated them. And we talked about Adam Wharton. For under 21 midfielders, percentage of passes forward, Adam Wharton was top. Javi Guerra was fourth on that list. So this is a guy that looks forward, plays forward, can drive forward. I think he'd be a really, really smart addition. And I don't think he'd break the bank as well. And again, similar to the guy I was suggesting from Rayo Vallecano, like we're not trying to buy the emerging players at Inter or Juventus or whatever. We're signing players from Valencia who've had a difficult few seasons. Man United, look, maybe they wouldn't want to go there, but Man United still, for now, just about hold enough prestige and like big club reputation. So that would be my suggestion for central midfield. But guys, before I let you guys go, we do need to...
Joe Bellingham.
How about Joe Bellingham?
I'm not selling him to you guys. DOF says no. No. He's going to Crystal Palace. If he has to go anywhere, he's going to Crystal Palace. Guys, quickly, I'm not going to get you to score predict the Europa League final because that just doesn't seem fair at all. But Liaz, quickly, what does this Europa League final mean for Man United going forward?
I'm even going to switch it up. Guys, this is a spoiler. This is so you're watching this after the Europa League final. We have won. Life is good.
God,
honestly,
bro,
at this current moment when you watch this, I'm on a beach, cigar in my mouth, sitting back in my chair, loving life as a
Loving
European
16th.
champion. Yeah, Champions League next season. So yeah, this is a spoiler, man. I'll see you guys.
He's not confident at all. Don't worry, he's not confident.
Do you want to do a sort of...
Yes, let me bring us
I
back to
saw a
earth.
Crystal Palace fan do that before, and he looks like a genius. So I'm afraid that's gonna be me.
Listen, this means everything. This means everything for the fan base. This means everything for the club. It means everything for next season. It means everything for the transfer window. It's honestly, it's do or die. And listen, finals should always feel like that. But there's something else about this final because of how bad our season has been. And of course, Spurs are feeling the same way. So there's just this weird feeling, an atmosphere of negativity and fear and question marks over both clubs. So honestly, it's such a big game. I've watched Man United in Champions League finals, FA Cup finals against City, Europa League finals, watched us win Premier Leagues. And this is the most I've been like, it's all or nothing. Yeah. It's all or nothing. Like we when we played Chelsea in 2008, it's like we had Cristiano Ronaldo and Rooney. Like we'll be back. You know what I mean? This, I don't know if we're gonna be back if we don't.
I think a lot of Amorim's tenure as well too heavily relies on this, man.
Like,
how we start next season. Yeah.
This is a proper finale, man. Like it could be the finale for me as a creator. By the way, you might not see me
retiring.
But I promise, if we lose, I'm considering I might go back to real estate. You know what I mean? I really might do that. So, yeah, man, it's everything. It's everything. But I think we are gonna do it. I think we're gonna do it.
Okay. I mean, it does feel like the Champions League final obviously means more historically. It will be remembered more in 25 years' time, but it almost matters less. Like the Champions League, whichever side wins it, it's like a great bonus on the end of a great season. This is like, as you said, do or die for both sides. Yeah. It matters so much. Can't wait to watch it. Wish these guys luck. I don't particularly care who wins, but guys, thank you so much to Liaz and Cam for joining me on the Lowdown for this week. Guys, we'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.